Three important events shaped my life. The first was when I realized that I was no longer able to fulfill my responsibilities as a husband. The second was when I had a mild stroke. And the third was when my wife of 30 years informed me that she was having an affair. Sarah and I were married shortly after graduating from high school. Yes, we were teenagers in love and went through all the typical trials that young married couples go through. Our son was in the Air Force and our daughter married and moved to Oregon. I worked for the city parks department and Sarah was and always would be a homemaker, her choice. Our sex life was always on the up and up. I don't have a reference point to make that statement. I just assumed it. It picked up a bit when the kids left home and we were both excited about it. Just then, a little problem came up. "John, don't worry about it. It happens to everyone, especially as they get older." My wife tried her best to comfort me. "I'm not old, damn it. I'm not even 50 yet. Guys don't have this problem until they're well into their 60s. Maybe it's temporary. You could cut back on the beer or lose a little weight. A gym membership might make a difference." "You're right. I don't think giving up beer would help, but I could lose a little weight, especially around my middle. I'll check out a few local gyms. Planet Fitness isn't that expensive." "Don't worry about the cost, John. Heck, I'd like to join too. I'd like to lose a few pounds myself. Look into a family membership or something." "That's a start. I think I'll go see Dr. Curry too. Maybe something treatable." Dr. Curry found the whole thing a little amusing, especially since I was so worried about it. Physically, there was nothing wrong with me. He agreed that I could afford to lose some weight, but was hesitant to recommend any particular diet. He felt that any of them would work if you stuck to it. He said the same thing about exercise. Pick something and stick to it. Just do something. As I was leaving, he handed me a prescription. I didn't know what it was until I got to the pharmacy. Sildenafil 100 mg 30, 90 days, 3 refills. Yes, I did know what sildenafil was, and yes, I thought it was a bit humorous. The next few weeks are going to be interesting. Sarah was excited about the Viagra. She immediately started figuring out how we could stretch 30 pills over 90 days. I don't know how Dr. Curry came up with that many. She was so eager to try them out that we skipped dinner that night. When I got home from work the next day, Sarah had all sorts of information spread out on the dining room table. We usually ate in the kitchen. She prided herself on doing research on diets. After a few hours of work, we decided that we would start with the keto diet and see what happens. I also got her a season ticket to Planet Fitness. We bought 2 individual passes rather than 1 family pass. Over the next 2 years, everything was great. We both lost over 30 pounds. We adapted to the keto lifestyle very quickly, and since we were both on it, there were very few dietary conflicts. At the gym, I did 3,000 meters on the rowing machine every day, and Sarah did 3 days a week on the treadmill and ran outside the other 4. Dr. Curry increased our prescribed medication to 45 a month. Sarah was happy, and I was happy. And then I started noticing some problems with exercise. It happened so gradually that it was hard to notice. It's like boiling a frog, I guess. Doc Curry referred me for a special heart exam. "So, Doc, what's the verdict?" "John, you've had a mild stroke. Nothing serious, but we should observe for a while. First, I want you to cut back on the gym. Less cardio and strength training and more stretching and flexibility exercises. Don't let your heart rate get above 100. The second thing you should do is stop taking Viagra for at least 6 months." He smiled when he heard me groan. "I don't have to give up Viagra?" "No! Just stop taking it for about 6 months. You'll be able to start again with no problem. Can you take it?" "Yes, but I don't think Sarah can. She won't be happy." Sarah was comforted and worried about the stroke, but she wasn't as upset as I thought she would be about the Viagra restriction. I thought it was interesting. I never mentioned the 6 months. In the last few months or so, her physical activity began to move away from the gym. She started spending more time on long-distance running. A few 3-kilometer runs soon turned into 5-kilometer runs, and lately she had been doing 10-kilometer runs. It was something she did on her own. I had no interest in running, and she always found other runners to travel with. I hardly noticed that the frequency of overnight trips had increased in the last 6 months. As our sex life waned, her desire for running increased. It's been 5 months. The Sunday paper brought it all out in the open. "Sarah, why didn't you tell me about winning the race at Pocono last week?" My loving wife eyed me warily over her coffee cup. I'm sorry, John. I didn't realize it was such a big deal. Why did you ask? I asked because there's a picture of you in the Sunday paper getting a medal with some guy in the Pocono Mountains. Who the hell is Frank Contino? Sarah set down her cup of coffee and settled back in her kitchen chair. She was a little uncomfortable. Frank is one of my running buddies. We started training together about a year ago. I'm sure I've mentioned him before. No, I haven't. You've mentioned Sally Brand and Jill Armstrong, but you've never mentioned anyone named Frank. Does Frank go on these trips often? She didn't answer. I repeat, does Frank often go on these trips? Sarah stood up and took her coffee mug to the sink. Frank is the head of our running group. He goes to all the meets and competitions. As she said this, she looked out the kitchen window. For a few moments, neither of us said anything. I'm going for a walk. I'll be back in time for lunch. I expect you'll have a damn good explanation by the time I get back. I've suspected something for a long time, but I couldn't believe it could be true. I'll also have a few questions. If you lie, either directly or by omission, I'll know. John, it's no big deal. It just happened. Wait until I get back. I walked and walked and walked and didn't return until after dinner. The conversation was not long. She admitted that she had been having an affair with Frank Contino and told me she was going to keep seeing him. She tried not to throw too many stones or burn bridges, but from a practical standpoint, the marriage was over. She dated him for over a year. He had a small cabin boat on Lake Wallenpaupack, and they spent many days and weekends there instead of going to races. Racing gave her an excuse to be with him. I moved into the guest room. I went to an attorney and got a grim account of my future. I was still working and paying the bills. She still cooked and ran the house. Conversations were non-existent and only held as needed. I quit the gym. She started openly dating. This is how we existed for a few months. The initial tension between us disappeared. We became platonic. There was no hatred or animosity. We simply functioned together. Our children knew nothing of our situation. Although we were no longer having sex and I was no longer taking Viagra, one day I noticed that the number of pills in the container seemed to have decreased slightly. I still had a prescription, but I was no longer using them, so the supply should have increased, not decreased. My wife's lover must have gotten an extra portion at my expense. Saturday, I had a yard work day and my wife had a swim day. I was enjoying a cup of coffee and she was packing lunch for their outing. I happened to notice that she was making potato salad. We hadn't had potato salad since we switched to keto 3 years ago. I can see you're off the diet. That potato salad has a whole day's worth of carbs in it. No, I'm still sticking to keto. Frank, however, loves potato salad. I have plenty of carbohydrate-free treats to keep me going. That's very nice of you to provide lunch. Frank is bringing beer and wine. Don't be sarcastic, John. It doesn't make you look good. I'm sorry. It wasn't part of my plans. Have a good day. Sarah went upstairs to get dressed, and I went to my room and pulled out my vial of Viagra. It was a good thing she took a long shower, because I was having trouble grinding the pills up so they were small enough that they wouldn't be conspicuous. I had no idea how many I needed, so I settled on 6. I assumed the potato salad would only be eaten by him alone. The vial went back in the medicine cabinet in case she was looking for it. The lawn was mowed, the sidewalks edged, and the hedges trimmed. It took all day to do this. I was relaxing on the terrace when I got the call. John, are you here? Yes, Sarah, I'm here. I just finished all the yard work. What do you need? I'm at Wayne Memorial Hospital in Honesdale. Frank had a heart attack while we were boating. He'll have to be left here for a few days, and I have no way to get home. His car is still at the lake. Can you come and get me? Shit, Sarah. I'm sorry to hear about that. Is he going to be okay? I don't know. I think he will be. I'm in a bit of a state of confusion right now. Can you come get me? Sure. It'll take me about 3 hours to get there. I'll call you when I get there. The ambulance driver at the hospital was able to give the location of the boat and the possible location of the car. I didn't really care about the car, but I wanted to get the picnic basket from the boat. 2 hours later, we were home. The return trip was pretty much out of the question. Sunday, I was busy making plans, and Sarah was sitting on the back porch looking up at the sky. I cooked a couple light meals for her, but she wasn't interested. I quietly loaded the car with everything I wanted to take with me, The internet made it easy to close accounts and transfer money. Monday morning, I left work and had our attorney prepare all the necessary paperwork. I gave her the house and half of everything else. That same afternoon, I left. I never went back to the house. There are 10 fitness centers in the villages. I think I'm gonna love it here. Where did I put those little blue pills?